Hello everyone, welcome to episode 45 of Parenting Autism. My name is Chris and I'm joined by my lovely wife Sandy. Hi Sandy.
Hello.
What do we got on tap for today?
We have a couple of exciting things. We are going to have a guest later in the episode.
Okay.
And we'll see how it goes. And we're not going to say what it's about and who it is. Well, we'll see how it goes. But we're going to talk about our recent trip to North Dakota, and I want to highlight a lot of the fears that we've been helping Bryce work through the past month or so.
Yes.
And I think that's really going to be the core topic, and we've mentioned some before. So for those who are finding us for the first time, we say welcome, and you can go back and hear more of our story. But for those who have been following us and coming back, and we say thank you, they'll know that we've been mentioning a few things that we've been working through, but we've really made some incredible breakthroughs lately.
Sure, yeah.
And I've recorded some. I've even shared some on Facebook. Instagram has the 1 minute recording rule, so it cut my one off, which kind of aggravated me.
Yeah.
Because it was good, but it wasn't the whole thing. Like, they didn't get to see Bryce actually overcome. Yeah. But all good things, and we'll talk about that. So that's kind of what I was thinking today. Do you want to start? I guess we'll start with the trip, because that's kind of where we left off a couple weeks ago.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people were curious when we came back how it was to travel with COVID all around in the United States. So we can share a little bit about that and how we saw differences from prior travels to traveling during this new era that we're in. But we went to North Dakota, and we went there because I'm on this mission to go to all 50 states, and that's number 49, because people will be like, and why are you going to North Dakota?
Right.
But we went to Fargo, and
there are people there.
And it was a pretty good-sized city.
And they were nice people.
Very nice. And I would say that everything looked new to me. I mean, a lot of the city looked new. The restaurants, the developments. There's some development going on. Yeah. So I would say that it's probably grown a lot in the past 5 years or so would be my guess. But it was nice. So we had plenty of choices for dining out and things to do. And we didn't know what we were going to do. But we did know that they had an airplane museum, and we know Bryce loves planes. So we thought that would be cool, and it did not disappoint. It was actually really cool. Mm-hmm. And what was that plane that you saw that your dad flew in, that type of plane in the Navy?
It's called a TBM, which is a torpedo bomber from World War II. And my dad was the navigator. It's a 2-seat airplane that drops torpedoes to sink ships, enemy ships, and my dad would be in the back seat as the navigator, telling the pilot where to go.
I thought that was such a cool connection, unexpected for us to make there. And then there was somebody you got in touch with, right? That has a plane like that?
Yeah, while I was there, I thought I would Google plane rides in that particular plane, and I found out that there are outfits around the country that have these planes, and they offer rides. And I thought, wow, how cool would that be to do that with my 2 brothers in the future sometime. So we're going to look into that.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. So that was like a really unexpected gift that we discovered there. It was very interactive. Bryce got to sit inside of a helicopter as if he was flying that. And then they had one plane that was painted to look like one of the airplanes from the movie Planes. Mm-hmm. And he got to go inside that one. But they had him hanging, and they had them on the ground, and it was a very, very nice museum and
bigger
set up
than
there.
I expected.
Yeah, it exceeded my expectations. So that we did that. We also, they have a little town area called Bonanzaville, I want to say it was.
That sounds right. And
we went there, and it was very historic, where they actually had like the first house that was built in Fargo. They had it moved there to this location. Mm-hmm. And you're like in a little town, and you're going down streets, and you're walking through a neighborhood with the streets, and they had all the different types of businesses. So you had
barbershop, blacksmith, ice cream parlor,
post office, police station, a church. And then they had the train museum, and then they had an airplane hangar.
Yeah.
Bryce loved the trains. He was very excited to be able to run up and down a big steam engine. He loves doing that kind of stuff.
They had one warehouse full of old tractors, and a friend of mine likes old tractors. So when he saw that picture, he's like, "Oh, I wish I could have went there because I love old tractors."
And everything was so. And the old cars that they had, I never seen a collection together like that
Model
in
Ts
one place.
And Model A's. I mean, there was a lot of them.
Yeah, it was really, really nicely done. And I found, like, for me, what was cool going with Bryce was I would ask him, "What do you see?" And so, like, we were in this one room, and I'm like, "What do you see?" And he saw the grandfather clock in the corner while I'm looking at something completely different. And then he would tell me something else that he saw. And it was like, okay, this is great. So, I encourage parents with their children, if your kids are able to verbalize and communicate and communicate in any way, ask them what they're seeing. Because what we're finding with Bryce is that he really is looking at something completely different than we are, or looking at it in a different way. I've shared this before, but when we were asking him colors of houses, he was looking at the garage door color while we were looking at the main color of the entire house. They see things differently, or at least Bryce does for sure. So I have found that to be really interesting, and then I'll know what he's looking at, and then we can talk about that instead of me trying to just put on him whatever I'm looking at. So it was cool. I mean, that was a couple of things that we did. Of course, if you ask Bryce his favorite thing about visiting North Dakota, his answer is the hotel. So it doesn't matter where we stay. He just loves going to the hotel. So I will say that COVID did impact our hotel stay a little bit. We had packed all of our swim stuff and had checked to make sure that they had a swimming pool, because Bryce is in the middle of swim lessons, which we'll talk about. But we were planning on keeping those lessons up over the weekend while we were gone. And the pool was not able to, I guess their rule was whatever phase they were in, you could only have 6 people in the pool and 1 in the hot tub. But they didn't have the staff to make sure that there were less than,
they didn't have
required amounts.
To sit in the room to make sure there was only 6 people.
Pretty much. No one there to man the pool. So they just closed the pool.
Right. Yep. So we couldn't use the pool. So we were a little bummed about that, because we knew if we didn't keep up with his lessons that he might go backwards. But he did okay.
He did. And then another thing I noticed was Bryce loves to go to the fitness center at the gym. And I was also planning to work out, good intentions. So he and I went the first day, but you could only go with family. So I could not go with another. If there was another guest in the room, we could not go in there. And whoever worked, you had to have an employee from the hotel go in and wipe down every machine before you could start using the machines. So that was different. So we ended up just going one time. And then another thing I noticed very different, and probably the last thing that was really different, was breakfast. So normally they'll have a breakfast that has waffle makers, warm food items, but I noticed they tried to do everything where basically they didn't have to handle food for you at all.
Like they didn't want people touching the microwave doors or the handles on the waffle makers, so they just 86'd all that, and then just did packets of cereal, little bottles of milk, little yogurts,
cold stuff,
one serve items that you could get yourself.
And then they had a list of sandwich options that you could take to your room and heat up if you desired.
Yeah, and they were good.
Yep. So did it impact us at all? There were small impacts, but it did not ruin anything by any measure.
They spaced us out on the flight. There was most people had a seat in between them. But there were still people in front and in back of us, so there's really only 2 or 3 feet of space between people.
But the flight wasn't full, and the pilot even came on and said, if you're more comfortable, you can social distance and change your seat. Because it was not Southwest, it was Allegiant, so you were assigned a seat, but they allowed you to move.
Yeah, Bryce loved sitting in the window seat and watching everything that the wing did, and he wanted to see the engine spinning, but we were behind the engine, and all I could see was like the outer part of the engine. But he really liked watching the wings and the flight. I think the flight was a little long for him because he did mention a few times, "Are we there yet?"
Are we landing yet?
Yeah, how much
when
longer?
Are the wheels going down?
So, but overall, he enjoyed it. He got to talk to the pilot and ask him questions, and he had a lot of questions for the pilot. Of course, the pilot had a little bit of trouble understanding what he was asking, but it was still fun.
It was. And this time, Bryce, on his own, took his iPad and then started recording out the window the flight with us landing and stuff, because he's seen me do recordings and pictures. So it was really cool. He totally enjoyed the flight. I will say, I felt like when we left on the Friday that more people wore their masks, and it seemed a lot more conservative than when we flew home on Monday. And you said you had the same kind of vibe. I don't know what happened in 4 days. It's not like a phase change, but maybe it was just the different people on the airline. Or the staff, on the airline. It seems like they definitely did not enforce masks. But I have a feeling from reading the news that may all change because it's spiking back up again. But for us, it was a great trip. And it is kind of, who likes to wear a mask for 3 hours and 12 minutes?
Right.
But, for you and I, we don't talk about this much on here, but it's the reality of the world now of what we're dealing with. But, we've talked about it, and I think wearing a mask it's a respectful thing to do. So if you're in other people's space and you have the awareness and you're prepared, you should wear the mask. So
when we got back, Bryce resumed his swimming lessons, and he quickly got sick. Right after we got back,
no,
wasn't it? Or
he had a little bit of a cough while we were gone, and he said his ear hurt.
Oh yeah, that's right. So it was from swimming,
and he had a little bit of sniffles, but he didn't have anything that really indicated that he had a cold. But he said his ear hurt, and he has a history of getting ear infections now and then. And he had just started 1 week of swim lessons. So we thought, he could have water in there. So we better bring him home and get him to the doctor. So we got home on a Monday, and the doctor's office was going to be closed before we could get back to town by the time we drove from the airport. Right. So there's a late walk-in for kids that you can go to.
Urgent care.
So that's what our doctor's office recommended, which worked out great. And you took him there, and he did have a little bit of water or a little bit of,
in his ears.
It was in there. The fluid was there. It was not infected yet, but it was red. It was a good thing we got him there when we did. He started his antibiotic. Yeah. And all seemed fine, but when we woke up the next morning, I felt a scratchy throat. And then you felt it, and you and I both started it that Tuesday. And you always get a little worse than me. So you got the full-on sinus infection, which you wisely got an antibiotic out the gate. Mine was your typical 9-day cold that I always get. But so that's another reason why we haven't recorded for a couple of weeks, is we had a week of sickness. So the great news is we did not get COVID. We did get the common cold, but it's gone, and we're all better, and it's good. So, in fact, we're just trying to figure out where we're going to travel again. But that was good, and, we're going to talk about his fears and stuff, but the other thing going on around here is my dad, after we got back, of course, we didn't go over there and visit because of the colds, but then
and then we just traveled.
And then we had just traveled because we had thought about that as well. And, but anyway, so he went in and out of the hospital twice since we've done this podcast, and he did have a stroke. But I want to give God praise on our podcast as well, that if you look at the image of his brain, there is a lot of blood on his brain, at the damaged area.
It was a massive stroke.
It was, but yet he has survived this with only a little bit of blindness in his peripheral vision of one eye. He was very confused. He wasn't talking clearly. Not with a slur. He just was saying things that didn't make any sense. He thought he was back in Kentucky instead of Florida, and just odd things for a few days, which was our clue that something else was going on besides the blood clot that they found in his lung. Same time, a blood clot went into his brain. So anyway, he is home now. His mind is clear. He's talking clearly. He understands what happened, and
what did the doctor say?
Doctor said, "You are a very special man to have survived this, and there is a living God. If it had hit anywhere else, you would either be gone or you would have no speech or be paralyzed.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very, very grateful. It's been a little bit of a challenging time with all that and trying to help Bryce understand. But I think Bryce has handled it really well. He just knows Papa's sick, and he wants him to get better. And, he prays for him.
We compared that to Bryce's stroke when he was born, and your dad's was so much worse than his. It was just amazing that he's doing so well.
It really is. Yeah. So, yeah, that's true. It did take me back when all this was going on with Bryce having his stroke. So, yeah, but he's good. We're good. And so today, well, I guess we'll just go on to these fears. So we talked about swimming, and that has been not swimming as much as putting his face in the pool.
Right.
He was having a really, really difficult time going underwater. And I personally don't like it because, chlorine gets up your nose or your eyes are burning. But you got him goggles, and now he can see where he's going underwater. So I think that's given him some confidence. We did this a couple years ago, but it was on like a 2-week course. So it was like, I don't know, maybe he got pushed through because they had an agenda to meet within a certain amount of time. I kind of think that's what happened. It wasn't that the instructor was bad. I think the program just was cookie cutter and maybe not designed for Bryce.
Yeah, I think, sometimes you and we think differently or have different perspectives, and that's why we're both on the show. But I really think there was an episode that triggered his fear of going underwater again, where you not so much because...
Oh, no, I agree with that. But I think it pre-existed that. But go ahead.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But I just remember him after his first round of swimming lessons a couple of years ago, he was able to go underwater and get his yellow car and other things off the bottom of the pool. Sometimes I helped him do that. And there was no fear, but a few weeks ago, we went to a friend's pool, and there were some other children there, and they wanted to play Marco Polo, and Bryce had not played before. And they were playing in the pool. Somebody was Marco, Bryce was Polo, and the girl unintentionally,
Well, she was trying to get away from who was chasing them. And
no, I think Bryce was Polo, so she was trying to tag him.
Oh, okay.
Is what I remember. And so when she tagged him, she unintentionally kind of slapped him under the water. Yeah. So he went down unexpectedly under the water. And as you know, with kids on the spectrum, they can't predict when things like that will happen. If you get hit on the shoulder, you don't understand that you're going underwater until you're underwater. And so I think he was frightened because chlorine and pool water went up his nose, and he wasn't expecting that, and he may have even swallowed some water. So that whole episode, I really think, gave him the fear of even getting in the pool with somebody else again and them wanting to play that game or him going underwater. So when we wanted to tackle this second round of swimming lessons, he was very apprehensive, even about going into the pool with Mr. Matt. We kind of had to get him into the pool, and then he said he did not want to go underwater at all, and that was like...
right, and so we all acknowledged that, and Mr. Matt was wonderful about it, and he's like, no, we're not going under the water, we're just going to do this or that. He's let it be Bryce's choice in a lot of these things and to work him along.
Have it be Bryce's choice, and you get so far into the lesson, and then Bryce is comfortable, and he says, okay, I'll put my nose under or my mouth under, and then I'll put my mouth and my nose under. And then if I'm recording for mommy, then he wants to do a little extra to show off for you. So that's always a bonus. But over these past couple of weeks, was it 2 or 3 weeks that he's had these lessons?
3 weeks now.
3 weeks. He's totally comfortable in the pool. He wants to show us all his tricks.
The first thing he wants to do is put his face under the water.
Yeah.
And then flip and float.
Yeah.
So
he's really comfortable now. He does have trouble with coordination with the scoop, kick. So I don't know if he's sometimes he tries to swim too fast, so he doesn't make very much progress. And other times he's just not coordinated with the alternating of the hands and the feet. So
yeah, but a good tip we got from his instructor was to get him a wetsuit to put over his swimsuit.
And to put water shoes on his feet.
Because that's given him, I guess, the buoyancy to help him stay.
They're like flip-flops, but they're Velcro. They go around the ankle and the top of the foot. So it's not like an actual shoe. It's kind of like strap-on sandals. And that gives him a little extra propulsion when he kicks. And then the wetsuit gives him the buoyancy to go further underwater. And then when he turns over to float, he can float really well and not be scared that he's going to drop under.
Yeah, he loves floating. Oh, my goodness. And he's so relaxed and calm. So it's gone really well. But I think what you pointed out is really what sharing for the parents on here is. When we say baby steps, we mean baby steps. It really was no face to lips to another day, the nose to another day.
Yeah.
You know, the next thing to where then he would put his face in, not his whole head.
Right.
And now the whole head goes under and he's fine. But
no fear.
Yeah, it's definitely good. So that's been a fear we have worked through, and I don't think that one's coming back unless something else unexpected startles him.
And that's the thing about autism. You don't know what's going to happen.
No, he does. And you were saying to me yesterday, you're like, have you noticed that he's been exhibiting more anxiety lately? Like he's been biting on his fingers more. I notice now if he's nervous about something, he blows spit bubbles with his mouth, like big ones, but I can tell that's like his way of coping. We're really working with him on taking deep breaths.
And asking him how he feels, and he'll tell us. I feel a little scared, and we're like, okay, well, thanks for telling us. We understand it's a little scary, but, it's okay.
Yeah, and we're just, it's important that we don't break his trust.
Right.
And sometimes we can't control things either.
I think you hit on it. It is just so important to take things super slow when they have anxiety about something like a balloon popping or the whole balloon issue that we have.
So the balloon, let's talk about that because really it was huge. So I put this video on Facebook, but like I said, it was a little short. So on my personal one, it's the whole thing, and we share our story with all kinds of friends here because people in our world, we want them, whether they parent autism or not, we want them to understand Bryce, and
they want to understand
in this community
Bryce
more, and they want to, and it really helps them see, wow, it takes a lot to get Bryce to throw a water balloon. So we've mentioned before recently that he's struggled with balloons because they make a loud popping sound. And he doesn't know when they're going to pop. He knows outside they can. And inside, we've learned that if it hits our ceiling, it will pop. And, he gets, and he's very protective of people that he cares about. So if he thinks you're in danger of a balloon, he's going to get upset and have anxiety about that as well. So first, I guess we'll start with the poppers because we went there first.
The Snap-and Pops.
Those little Snap-and Pops that you can throw to the ground. We wanted him to have some control over the popping sound. So we were working with his ABA tech, Miss Melanie. And first we had his little friend Cassidy throw a popper. And then Melanie would throw a popper. And then eventually Bryce did throw a popper. And was very proud of him because it was hard for him. But I will tell you, the first time we tried to get him to do it, we even had a donut as his reward. And this boy loves donuts, and he does not get them often. He did not do it. And I'm like, that really tells me how afraid he was of the popping sound.
He wouldn't even go outside.
No.
Yeah.
And he was not going to throw one.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, well, it's okay, but you don't get the donut, and Cassidy has to take it home. And he didn't have a tantrum. He wasn't even sad about it. It was like, no problem. I mean, it's okay because I am not throwing a popper. Fast forward, it was probably 3 or 4 days later that he decided that he would do it with Miss Melanie. And I did record and share that, which was great. And we put his headphones on him so he would have that sound protection and feel better. But it was a big process, and we shared that video because it really showed where he went from being afraid to actually throwing the popper. And he did, because he kept going, I will try. I will try to do it. And we're like, okay, you don't have to, but if you want to try, you can.
It's a really good video that shows how ABA works.
Yeah, it was great. So he did throw the popper, and then he says to me a little later, and Cassidy will bring me a donut. And I'm like, well, I don't think she's going to bring you another donut, but she's such a good friend. The next time she saw him, she did bring him a donut because she watched the video.
Yeah.
But he really wasn't doing it for the donut. I mean, a little bit part was like, hey, I did it. But he just worked his way through it. It was on his timetable. And when he was ready, he did it. So now we're like, okay, let's show him about water balloons because they don't make a popping sound. So he needs to know that not all balloons make loud pops.
So what I did was he was so afraid that it was going to make a pop sound, I turned on the sink and I said, Bryce, this is what a water balloon sounds like when it pops or splashes. You know, it's a splash sound. So I turned the sink on, turned the sink off. Splash, 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 splash. And he got that concept. He's like, water balloons make a splash sound. I'm like, yes, they do. It's just a splash. They don't make a pop sound. So
yeah. So then I guess the next thing with water balloons that triggered the fear, we got over, he was still a little leery about the sound. But somehow, and I don't know how exactly, but somehow he saw a video of water balloons being thrown at each other, at people. So now he's like, don't throw it at me. You won't throw it at me. You know, we're like, no, we're not going to throw it at you. That fear still lingers a little bit. We're working through that. But we're explaining to him, no, you can blow. He was afraid to even touch it without anything in it.
Right.
When it was completely empty,
he
did not want to touch it. He was so afraid of it.
I finally, one day we were going to do it, and then it was no. So we didn't want to push him. So I was like, okay, here's the balloon, the empty balloon. You need to put it back into the bag if you don't want to do it. So it was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? The look on his face.
You think it'd be like touching
dynamite.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But, or a dead lizard. I mean, he did not want to touch it.
So I finally coaxed him into coming over and getting the balloon and putting it in the bag. And then I said, okay, now take the bag and put it back into the cubby where it is.
Yeah, and he was holding it like
kryptonite. It's like kryptonite.
As far away from his body as he possibly could as he walked it back into his room.
Yeah, so... But
that was step one.
That was step one. Day one was turning on the water, showing him the splash sound, and then having him put the balloon back into the package. That was day one. So when we say baby steps, we mean baby steps. That's,
And then we talked about a few more days, and then his friend was coming over. And so it was Cassidy again, because she's so great with him. So, I mean, it was a long video. It was about a 15-minute process, but it was truly how ABA works at its best. And of course, we do it when we don't have a tech here too, but we had her here, which was great. So it got documented for his file. But it starts with him being absolutely terrified, standing in his room with you holding the balloons in the bag.
Yeah. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
No. And he was so afraid, and he didn't want anybody else to touch it.
Yeah.
And then finally we're like, well, Cassidy can touch one, because that's a peer and someone his size and his age.
Let me interject there and say that a lot of times he feels like he has to protect you for whatever reason.
I know.
He is the protector of you. So if you touch something that might be dangerous, or if you put a pot on the stove and turn the burner on for the pot, it's like...
If he feels it's dangerous for him, he thinks it's dangerous for me.
Yes, and he doesn't want... Daddy, he could care less. Daddy can go do
You can do all the balloons you want, but not me.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's why you were holding the balloons and I was recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it really was a slow, drawn-out, long process to get him out of his room to the sliding glass doors where he could look through the door at a balloon being thrown, and he only wants it to be thrown at one particular tree because it's tall and big, he said. So he must feel like it can take it. I don't know.
Guess so.
But he's like, no, only the big, tall tree. Okay. So, but he watched it get thrown and splash. Then we got him to stand outside while his friend threw it and
keep in mind, this tree is probably 50 to 75 feet away from the door.
Yeah, he was still that afraid.
It's pretty far.
Yeah. Then we had him walk halfway between the house and the tree. Mm-hmm. And he sat down in the grass by himself, like, I'm not budging anymore, but I'll sit here. And then Melanie's like, I want you up here, just a little, maybe another foot closer.
Yeah.
And he did. He scooted up. He had his headphones on this whole time. And then she did another one while he had his headphones on. This is his friend Cassidy throwing it. Then you brought another one, and then you're like, okay, well, let's take your headphones off for this one, which that was another step to get him to sit there without the headphones
it was only
and not cover his
sound.
ears, because now we know it's just splash and it's not loud, or it won't harm your ears. And so then he did that. We all did not think he would touch one that day. I didn't think he would. I mean, not where we started. I would have been happy if we got that far.
Yeah.
But you came out with two, and then you said, can you hand this one to Cassidy? So we didn't tell him he had to throw it, but he was now holding one, and very, again, like he's holding
like
dynamite. A bomb. He's walking very gingerly over there to give it to her. And then he would say, don't throw that at me. And she's like, no, I would never throw that at you. So anyway, he told her she could throw it at the tree again, and she did. And then I said, well, do you want to throw one? He said, yes. Oh, okay. We got there. He agreed. Yeah. So you brought them out, and we had them throw them at the same time. Mm-hmm. And then after that, he wanted to do it with me and you the next morning.
Yeah.
So we brought it out again today, just to play. And he was
a little apprehensive.
He was. It was like, don't throw them at me. And I think that was the only fear. And then when he saw we weren't going to throw any at him or at each other.
Right.
But Cassidy and I did a balloon toss so he could, which I really want him to learn that concept of, it's a game and it's fun and it's interacting, but we're not throwing it at each other.
I don't want to get wet, but he was already soaked.
Yeah, we were out there playing in the water slide. So he was already wet.
You can't throw it at me because I will get wet. I'm like, you're already soaked. You're already wet,
So I think it's just the fear of what it would feel like hitting him.
Yeah.
He doesn't know. I mean, if somebody was throwing something at me and I didn't know.
It's unexpected. He doesn't know how to predict.
Is it going to hurt me?
Right.
Or is it not? So, but these are really, really big things that we've been working through. I had one friend on Facebook that sent me a note and said, you guys have been having so many victories. Your hearts must be full. Yes. And I'm like, they are right now, There's been so much going on, but it seems like we're getting all these little victories with Bryce. So we're out here to encourage other parents that, if your child is struggling with some anxieties and fears, just keep doing those baby steps and working with them. Patience is the key. Oh my gosh. And I know in this world of autism, you have to have patience of a saint, but that's really what ends up working at the end of the day.
You just have to...
If we try to push them through something, it never ends pretty. It doesn't.
You as a parent have to be in a relaxed state of mind to take something like that on. You can't have anxiety yourself and then try to help your child through that, because they can sense that. So you have to go into it relaxed and not worry about whatever the outcome's going to be. If you don't make any progress, you have to be okay with that, and then you just try again later. What else we got?
That's about all I got. Oh, but did you want to mention your book that you read, In Two Worlds?
Yeah, I do want to mention this book because I think it provides a lot of insight into autism for kids that are nonverbal or have very little words. So the book is called In Two Worlds, a novel by Ido Kadar. So this particular book, they say it's fictional, but, he uses different names and maybe different situations. But after reading his first book, Ido in Autism Land.
Because Ido has autism, correct?
Yes.
The author has autism.
Yep. I could tell that this was based most likely on his experiences, So in the book, he talks about his ABA therapist and his other therapists and other kids when he wasn't able to talk. He would describe the situations and what it was like being him inside his body and not being able to communicate. And for those of you who have a nonverbal kiddo or a kiddo with just a few words, I think this book provides a lot of hope that, there is somebody in there. and they do care, and they just might not be able to tell you. He talks about all the time when they were working with him on trying to communicate some way that, pick up the blue ball, and he knew which one the blue ball was, but because his brain told him to pick up the yellow ball, he would pick up the yellow ball. And the people on the outside would say, well, see, he just doesn't understand. But he was in there. He understood. But because his brain couldn't communicate with his motor skills, he would pick the wrong one.
That's interesting.
And it was so interesting. And he went through this whole process, and finally they came across this lady that knew that he would be able to communicate, and she had a special way of teaching him and honing his motor skills and his brain connection to his motor skills. And eventually he was able to communicate through touching words, touching letters, and then finally through like a tablet. And so he's written this book now, In Two Worlds, and it is just amazing. I see so many things that I can say, yep, I totally get that. I bet you Bryce was thinking that too.
I still have to read it because you just recently finished it, so it's going to be my turn next. It's really, I know it really spoke to you.
And I generally don't like to read about autism or watch movies about autism because I'm in that world. I don't need to relive it like through a movie or something like that, because sometimes it can be depressing watching those types of movies for me. But when I read this book, it gave me hope for the parents out there that have kids that are nonverbal or can't communicate fully. And I'm not saying, all kids have different abilities. I can't speak for every kid out there, but this is a hopeful book. And
I think on this journey we're always looking for hope. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm always looking for hope as well. Like, we don't know where Bryce will be. I'm reading my own book right now, which is a book about social with Temple Grandin and another gentleman that also has autism, but he says he's recovered, and he's an adult now. But it gave his perspective of what it was like growing up, and they come from two different perspectives, that's the whole crazy thing about this spectrum, is that it is definitely even social. One withdraws while the other craves to have friends, but they don't know how to make friends, while the other's completely content that they don't have any friends.
Right.
I think Bryce is one that would like to have friends. He just doesn't quite know how to interact, and that's why I'm really focusing on the social. And then after that, I read an article. You had sent me something about highlights from an autism meeting that took place, and they're like, this is what you missed. So I just kind of read through that, and they had somebody speaking about social, and they did a survey on adults who are now 25 years old that were diagnosed at age 2, and I think maybe they were 21. Anyway, 21 or 25, but they were diagnosed at age 2. And just the statistics, and again, I don't know, statistics can be deceiving, how many people they interviewed, but what they were saying, bottom line, was those adults who had a peer, at least one really good friend, they had a lot more independent skills to live by themselves when they became adults versus those who could not maintain a friendship.
If they had a good friend growing up or after they graduated?
Growing up.
Okay.
Growing up. Yep. Mm-hmm. To help them through childhood and into the teen years. Mm-hmm. And I think to help them just gain their independence, and probably communication and all of that. I mean, we're teaching Bryce life skills, but I just know in my, it's that mama gut thing. Like, I knew when something wasn't right with him before. I know that focusing on social for him is so, so, so important,
Super important
as to what's going to be the projection and the outcome of his life. Mm-hmm. And what we do to help him with social, because he cannot do these things on his own, is what's going to make all the difference as to how he's going to be at age 21 and at age 25. Right. I know that. So, we're working on that. So that kind of leads into this little interview that we're going to do here. Bryce has one friend. Chris is like bugging out because, if this doesn't go well, it's okay. Y'all will know it didn't go well, but we're going to try this. He was going to be discreet. No, it's out there. We got Cassidy here. So we've mentioned Cassidy, and I will tell you more when she's here behind the mic. Right now, she's entertaining and playing with Bryce. But she is such a blessing to our family and her mom. And she has a baby sister, but Cassidy and her mom, Christine, they will come over here anytime we ask to help Bryce. It's to help Bryce. Yeah. And I probably could cry, but I won't. But I will say that to have their friendship right now, I know how important this is for Bryce. And Cassidy just genuinely loves him. And Christine's like, he's like a nephew to me. I mean, like, they cheer these victories. And they participate in it, and they've seen him
They're here
growing
with the water
and changing. I mean, they're like going through the trenches with us. Yeah. But she wants to play with him.
She wants to help him.
She wants to be his friend, and it's so good for him. And he has just fallen in love with her, and he's so excited when he knows she's coming over. And like specifically today, she wanted to stay, and this is the first time she stayed at her house without her mom. It's like Bryce having a friend over for the very first time.
He's like, Cassidy, are you staying the night or something like that?
Where do you sleep?
Yeah, are you going to sleep here?
That's how he was trying to say excited, it. And then he says, Cassidy, do you love playing with me?
I know.
And she's like,
my
yes.
goodness.
So, I mean,
he loves his friends.
It's like a normal family where, okay, you want to have a friend over? Okay, this friend's coming over. And, and Christine trusts us to have her. Yeah. And, there's just so much beauty to this.
He's got a lot of great friends that come and visit him.
He does. And, so we are so grateful to every parent and child that has really come on this team. And I got more lined up, but these two, they're pretty special only because she just seems to understand it. But, she's going to tell us more when we bring her in here.
She's a little motherly to him, I think.
She's very much the little motherly to him. So, we love her.
All right, so we're going to pause here and bring Cassidy in.
We'll meet Cassidy. Welcome to our show.
Hi, my name's Cassidy. I'm so grateful to be here.
You are so sweet. So tell everyone how old you are.
I'm 8 years old, and
your birthday is?
October 6th.
And
Bryce's
birthday is October 5th.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are 2 years and 1 day apart.
Mm-hmm. And we are two years apart, yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, what do you like best about being friends with Bryce?
His creativity. He is such a wonderful mind, even though he has autism. It's just so wonderful. You guys teach so great too. It's
thank you.
Awesome.
So what's some of his creative things?
On the bouncy house, he was like, let's roll around in it. And we rolled around in it, and that's something that's wonderful that he has.
Yeah.
Like something that he can think of it.
Yeah, because for him, the creativity, it's hard for him to do pretend and stuff, but I noticed that when you guys were playing on the bounce house, you came out and you actually kind of came off the slide and you got stuck. So you're like, help, I need help, right?
Yeah, we were creating our own superhero names. I was Unicorn Woman, and Bryce was Spider Bryce. Yeah, Spider Bryce.
Because he had the Spider-Man on his swimsuit. Yeah, and at first you were really stuck, so he had to help you.
Yep.
And then after that, Bryce went and he got pretend stuck and said, help me.
And then we created a game.
Then it became a whole game.
Yep.
Right?
And he has such a creativity mind. It's wonderful.
I think you bring it out of him.
Yes.
So like when he has his therapies, because Miss Melanie, when you come over here.
all the time.
She works with him with therapies, and she'll tell him, it's kind of like sequences. So first you do this, and then you do this, and then last you do that, right? That's part of his therapy to kind of help him know what beginning to end and
the order of things.
The order of things. Well, we had this great game today with the obstacle course.
Yep.
And so then I was giving you guys to say, okay, you run around the bounce house twice, then you go inside and you jump 5 times, and then you come out, you go down the slide, then you come give your mommy's kisses, and then
ring
the chimes, pick up a rock, and say, we did it. Right? Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. And so, you guys were doing that together, and you remembered all the steps. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was fun to see.
And on our last one, I remember I made one about, Kim Possibles, like adventure,
Yeah, and you were showing him how to do the kicks and punches, and he was doing it.
Yeah, he did awesome.
He did. So that's why it's so great for you to come and play with him, because first of all, Mr. Chris and I, we're not going to go out there and do kung fu kicks like Kim Possible. So see, he needs to see somebody like his age that will just take his hand and show him these things.
Possible.
Yeah. So it's so great because he doesn't have brothers and sisters.
Yep.
And so we have you like a big sister for him who has been really cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We thank you. So before Bryce, did you know any other children with autism or any adults with autism?
No.
So this is really your first experience?
Yep.
Awesome.
Oh, cool.
So tell me maybe 2 things that you've learned about autism since you've met Bryce and been playing with him.
Actually, today, I didn't even know water had oxygen. So,
That's right.
Yep, I
He
didn't
told
even
you it
know
had
that.
1 molecule of oxygen, didn't he?
And
So
it was one in the room, but I forgot about it. I think it was something that he did over there on his thing, but I so forgot.
So what did you learn about autism specifically?
Have you seen anything that Bryce has had trouble with?
The game that we were just talking about, how he gets trouble knowing stuff like how he need help, how to help me, save me.
He didn't know what to do, did he?
He was just jumping up and down, so excited, like, she needs my help, she needs my help. And
you
we
kind
just
of taught him.
Yeah,
so what happened? Yeah,
I said,
he was standing there jumping up and down thinking it was funny because he was excited.
And sometimes you just need to push him a little bit more. Don't be mean or anything, but just go. What I said, I may not play with this game anymore with you. So
if you don't come and help me.
And then every single time he goes because I said to it. And
That's it. You said that to him, and then the next time that you said, all right, I'll try it one more time, but if you don't help me, I'm done playing it. And he went right over and helped you.
Yep, and it's awesome because
That's good.
he does that.
Give me a high five, girl.
He did that. We had to do that a few more times to get him
For him to
understanding. Yes.
Yeah.
You're very patient and understanding with him.
Thank you.
And you probably have to do that more with him than you do your other friends.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I mean, that's what you're learning with him. It takes him time, but eventually he does get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
That's great.
What else did I want to ask you?
What else did you want to ask her,
I
Shane?
don't know, and it just slipped my mind.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it on the paper?
Well, that's what I was reading. I did want to ask you this. So what do you think about his anxiety? Because you've seen him struggle a lot with the poppers and with the water balloons.
Yeah, but he did so good today. Hard question.
Now, were you scared of balloons when you were a little younger, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
And why were you scared of them?
I think, 1, because of the noise like he, and 2, I was afraid to hurt, and 3, I think, I'm not sure, but some of them, yes, but some of them, no. I think it was just the attraction. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know, you flip a page in a book, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's
how Bryce thinks. He he can't predict when things are going to happen. That's kind of why he's scared sometimes, even with a water balloon, because he doesn't know if it's going to pop in his hand or what it's going to do. So that's why he's a little scared.
Yeah.
But see, I think you guys are great for each other because you understand that you can teach him things.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys tell me that you have so much fun playing together, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to tell other parents that are listening is that there are other kids that will want to play with your children. You just, you have to make it happen, though.
Yeah. Can I tell the thing that I just did when you guys were doing this thing?
Absolutely.
So I told him about the boy who cried wolf. And then I was like, here, stay in the bed and I'll look up on Google if I could search that if, I told him the stories of Three Little Pigs and Goldilocks. And then I heard you guys and I just put it on a learning game on it and he's fine right now and
we're doing this.
Look at me, I'm right here.
I know.
That's great. That's what good friends are for. Sharing those stories with him that he may not know right now, and he learns from those stories. So good for you.
And you're teaching him, too, to interact with you a little bit more instead of just playing his airplane game because he could fly planes all day long if you let him. But he was teaching you to fly the plane, and I thought that was great because you didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And he was saying, don't crash, don't do this. And you're like, well, show me how, which was great.
I just push him a tad bit, not all the way,
right.
but just a
Give him a
tad
nudge.
bit.
Yep, a little nudge.
Yep, and you shouldn't really be mean to your kids, only if they, with autism kids, like Bryce, you should just
be patient.
Tell him a little bit. You shouldn't be like me. If I ate cookies on the top of the shelf, my mommy says, "Hey, get off of that." But if Bryce did that, you should kind of be like, "Hey, now you should not do that." And if he still kind of does it, you should a little bit tad more, be a little pushy. But
a little stern.
You really do, Cassidy.
You do.
You really understand him
because if you just yelled at him, what would happen?
He would get sad and
he shuts down, doesn't he? You're right. You've learned.
Yeah. That's right. You just can't raise your voice at Bryce because he just doesn't understand why you're yelling. So you like you said, you have to talk to him in a calm voice and tell him that it's not the right thing.
But he does need that little extra nudge.
Yep.
So I'm giving you a book to take home today called The Kindness Detective. And we had someone that sent us that book because they wanted us to read it and to share it on our podcast, which I mentioned before. But when I read it, I felt like it would help Bryce's friends more than it would help Bryce. Because Bryce doesn't understand that he's different from anybody else.
Yeah, and some children might not understand a book.
Right.
Like if me and Bryce read a book right now in the room, reading it together in our own heads, he might not understand it.
Right. Or understand different parts.
Right.
And you understand different parts.
And then this story is talking about children that are different, like at school, because you see a lot of different kids at school, and then how you can be kind to them, and that you're a detective looking for ways to be kind to other kids that might be a little bit different than you are.
Yep.
You are an awesome kindness detective.
Yes.
Thank you.
But I know you're going to read that book, and it's going to, I told you, maybe it'll even give you more ideas of ways that you can play with Bryce. And not just play, but also help him to be safe.
Yep.
Like you said, it's important that his friends would know how to help him be safe.
Yep, definitely.
Wow.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for being on our show, Cassidy.
We loved having you as our guest.
Yes, your ideas are great.
We love having you in our family. You know you're part of our family now, right?
Yep, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We love you so much.
Thank
We're
you.
so glad that you love Bryce.
Yep.
And you're a good friend to him.
Thanks for being here.
Okay, you want to sign us out today?
Yep.
All right, tell everybody have a great week.
Goodbye and have fun.
All right, peace out. It's a wrap.
Bye.